If your team isn't using ClickUp, you're wasting time, and data proves it. 61% of knowledge workers manage work more than doing it, switching apps 1,000 times a day. That's work sprawl and costs millions. ClickUp replaces 20 apps with Convergence, uniting projects, docs, and chats, while AI super agents handle the busy work. Join 4 million teams using ClickUp to finish work 30% faster. Try it free and get 15% off AI upgrades at clickup.com/podcast. That's CLICKUP.com/podcast.
Hey, this is Paige from Giggly Squad. Peloton is inviting everyone into their Pilates era, and honestly, I love the idea. Peloton Pilates is built on precision, backed by results, and trusted by over 2 million members with expert instructors and classes designed for every level. You can choose 10 to 45-minute sessions with little to no equipment anytime, anywhere. And Peloton isn't just about running or cycling. Their cross-training series makes it easy to mix movement styles without committing to just one thing. Press Pilates, small moves, big impact. Visit onepeloton.com/Pilates.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Scary. I'm your host Will, and each week I narrate your real life paranormal experiences as well as cover some famous paranormal cases along the way. If you've your own paranormal experience that you'd like me to narrate on the show, you can send it to scaryaparanormalpodcast@gmail.com and it just might get made into a future episode. Before we get into this week's episode, as always, I need to say a special thank you to our new Patreon subscribers, who are Sharon Jones, Pauline, Charlotte Goldsmith, Ruth Daly, Jacqueline Miller, Crystal Fields, Laura Hooks, and Tracy Cornelius. Honestly, thank you so much for signing up to the show's Patreon, and if this is something you're interested in, you can find the link in this episode show notes, where you can gain access to ad-free main episodes as well as exclusive scary episodes. I have 2 listener experiences for you in this episode, so now let's get into our first paranormal encounter. In 2002, I was 30 years old. I just moved into an upper flat with my 3 children. It was a 4-block building. I had recently left a pretty bad marriage, and before all of this we had been living in a high-rise flat. At this time, I was studying. The kids went to their dads every weekend, which gave me time to focus on my coursework and attend meetings of a well-known self-help group. I was still quite early in my sobriety back then, so structure and routine were important to me. I cannot remember exactly how long we had been in the flat when it started, but I do remember the first moment something felt off. One evening we were all in the living room, just messing around, laughing. My daughter was 6 at the time, and out of nowhere she stopped, completely still. And she looked towards the doorway between the hall and the living room, and she said there was a man standing there watching us. My daughter had always been a prankster. Even at 4 or 5, she loved trying to scare people. I could not see anyone in the doorway, and I thought she was joking. She said that he was telling her that he was not allowed in the living room. I do remember feeling uneasy, but I didn't really want to show it. I'd always been open to the idea of the paranormal. I've had experiences in my life, but I didn't want to frighten the children, so I kept it light. I brushed it off. After that, she never mentioned him again. I assumed that she had been playing around. But not too long later, things began happening when the children were away. It mainly would happen at night. As I would be settling into my bed, I would hear a little bell ring. It had a high-pitched sound to it, and the sound seemed to come from near my bedroom door, which was at the head of my bed. The first time I heard it, I was confused. It wasn't a familiar sound in my home. The kids were not there. The building was a quiet building, and the neighbours downstairs were elderly and generally very peaceful. It was not the kind of place where you would hear strange noises. I think I just tried to ignore it and went to sleep. The second time it happened, I remember I had a small cowbell hanging on my bedroom door. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe there was a draft. But when I got up and shook it, it was a completely different sound. It made a heavy, dull sound, not a light, high-pitched ringing that I had been hearing. It was summer. The air was warm and still. There was no breeze. Weeks passed, then months, and every weekend when the kids were away, I would hear this bell ring again. I did become frightened. I started to dread being alone in the flat. I could not find a rational explanation, and although I'm very open to the paranormal, I was still skeptical. I always look for the obvious explanation first. I did not tell the children. I didn't even know how to describe what it was that I was hearing, and I did not want to plant fear in their minds. Eventually, I ended up speaking with a friend of mine who was quite intuitive. And when I told her about the bell, she said that years ago, people who were bedbound would sometimes use small bells to call for help. I guess you could say that the idea stayed with me, but I still did doubt myself. I wondered if I was imagining it. I wondered if I was just overtired, if stress was playing tricks on me. And then one night, it all changed. I was lying in bed when I heard the bell again, but this time it was followed by footsteps. I could hear them clearly walking around my bed. I just remember my heart pounding so hard that I felt like it was going to burst. I wanted to get up and run, but I was frozen. I kept my eyes closed. I was too afraid to look. Then I felt the bottom of the bed sink down as if someone had sat on it. I was wide awake. I knew I was awake. And then the pressure lifted and the mattress kind of moved. And then I felt the bed sink again, and this time on either side of my arms, as though someone was leaning over me. I just remember squeezing my eyes shut and praying for it to stop. When the pressure lifted again, something strange happened. Something shifted in me. I stopped feeling afraid. I just felt angry, almost invaded. And I remember forcing myself to sit up and to switch on the bedside lamp. And there was no one there. I don't know if it's because I read it or I heard it somewhere, but I said to the room, I don't know who you are, or mind you being here, but it's not okay to scare me. And I lay back down and I went to sleep. From that point on, the bell seemed to fade. I would hear it now and again, but eventually it stopped. I moved out after 3 years, and I never thought about it really until many years later. After a long time had passed, my kid's dad and I had a better relationship, and we would see each other usually at birthdays or events. This particular time was my son's birthday. We got talking about the kids in the flat that I'd stayed in, and I told him about the incident with the bell. And without hesitation he said to me, "Yeah, she used to tell me she would see a man in the house. I told her to tell him to go away." I felt completely stunned. I had asked him why he had never told me, and he said he thought I already knew. I think that unsettled me more than anything that happened in the flat. The idea of my daughter seeing this man, who I presume was the same presence that I was experiencing. Years later, I asked her about it again. She's an adult now, and she confirmed it. She said that she would see the same bearded man that she saw standing in the doorway of the living room that night. Thank you to Isabelle for sending in our first paranormal encounter. And now, let's get into our second. I had an experience that happened in the late summer of 1996. I'd graduated from university in London the previous year, but needed to return home to Hull to save some money after a shared tenancy on a rented property had run out, and I found myself unable to afford a deposit for another rental. I returned to my mum's house in Hull, and I got a job straight away at a pub called the Sailmakers Arms, which was in the city's old town just near the dockside. The pub had a diverse clientele, from local businesses to pub crawlers, Hullians and students. The landlord at the time was a lovely man called Dave, who had a heart of gold and was loved by his staff and regulars alike. Dave kept lots of unusual animals, which included an ancient, rescued and very bad-tempered cockatiel, and several chinchillas that had a large raised run that circled the outside courtyard. There was a function room on the second top floor of the pub, with Dave's flat on the first middle floor. And Dave was happy to let me pick up lots of shifts, and I found myself working the bar, working in the kitchen and cleaning. On Sundays I would head into work for 7:30 in the morning to clean the bar, function room and the stairwells. I would then open up the kitchen, I'd have a break, then work the jazz night in the function room. It was a big shift, but very friendly and surprisingly relaxed. The bar itself was full of discreet noise due to all the animals, and I would carry a portable CD player with me, listening to the Pixies while cleaning. On this particular Sunday morning, I finished cleaning the downstairs bar and toilets and was just cleaning the brass railing around the bar area when Dave came down and asked if I wanted anything getting for the kitchen, as he was popping to the supermarket and would be gone for an hour or so. I remember I ended up giving him a list and then finished doing the brasso, and then took the cleaning equipment and hoover upstairs. I was cleaning paper plates, tablecloths and leftover buffet from the function room tables when I heard my name spoken clearly in a manner to get my attention. So I turned off the CD player and I replied, "Yeah?" I just assumed that Dave had nipped back and needed me for something. It was a male's voice, so logically that made sense. There was no reply. I went onto the landing and shouted to Dave, but there was still No response. I then heard my name called again, but this time from inside the function room. I answered as I went back in, but there was no one there. I ran downstairs to the door, found that it was locked, and the downstairs was empty. I decided not to put my music back on. I felt a little unnerved and just carried on tidying the function room in silence. And then I heard my name called again, but this time the voice was softer, as if it was in the same room. A loud whisper. So I went to the landing again and responded asking if anyone was there, but there was no reply. I also knocked on Dave's flat door, but by this point I knew he was out. I just went back up the flight of stairs and decided to hoover the floor, as I thought the sound of the hoover would be comforting or distracting. So I'd been hoovering a minute or so, and I clearly heard my voice again. This time pretty loud and assertive. So I turned the hoover off and I just thought enough is enough. I decided to take the rubbish bags down and sort the kitchen out, and once that was done, I'd finish the function room hoovering and rearrange when Dave was back. As I was leaving the room, I heard this voice very clearly say, "Claire, look up here." And for some reason, I resisted the urge to turn around and look up. Something was wrong. I remember feeling that electric fear that just awakens all your senses, and I just tried to calm myself down and stay logical. My intention was to be just cool and pragmatic, but it was very hard to convince myself, as the voice was very clear and almost felt goading. So I just left the bin bags and went downstairs to the main bar on the ground floor. And in that short walk, I decided to go into the kitchen, start the service, open up, and make myself a cup of tea. It felt like a great idea. My confidence kind of lifted. I needed to walk the full length of the bar to enter the kitchen at the rear of the room. Running directly behind the bar is this passageway where the barrels were brought down into the cellar, and you could look into it at a point where it met the end of the bar. As I reached this point and was just stepping into the kitchen, I heard the same male voice confidently and clearly say, "Claire, look at me now." The voice caught me off guard completely, and I looked to the right to see a young 17 or 18-year-old man stood in the doorway of the passage. He was a good-looking man. He was quite petite but physically strong-looking. He was very pale, had dark hair, dark eyes, and he was wearing a puffy white peasant-style shirt, dark trousers to his knees, with this thick, long brown sash or leather belt around his waist, socks to his knees, and buckled brown leather shoes. And he was absolutely soaking wet. He looked at me and I made eye contact with him, and I just remember his face changing to delight, as if he was delighted I could see him. I just remember looking away, and I kept my face passive, and I walked calmly into the kitchen. I didn't want to give him the benefit of seeing me panic. I remember feeling this electric charge of energy, and I had to focus to stay calm and bring my heart rate down. And I stood at the kitchen counter with my palms flat on the surface and just stared at them, and remember just focusing completely on staying calm. But I knew with unwavering conviction that the young man would just be around the corner of the door frame, ready to prank me if I was to look his way or step out. I'm convinced that his intention wasn't to scare me, but pure mischief and flirtation. I stayed exactly where I was until Dave got back, at least 10 or 20 minutes. And when I did hear him come back, I called out to him. I asked him to please come to the kitchen, which he did. I started crying straight away. I said I felt very unwell and that I had to go home immediately. And I got my bag and I left within seconds. I just remember staring at the door and the road outside and didn't glance back. I then walked really quickly to the phone box and I called my mum in tears and she came and picked me up. I was utterly petrified. I could not stop crying. My mum believed me. My behaviour, I was just so terrified and she could see I wasn't exaggerating. I persuaded my mum to call the bar that same day, saying I was leaving with immediate effect. I was too scared to even ring. I also called a friend in London and I arranged to move back on the Wednesday, taking her sofa. I felt like I had to get out of Hull straight away. I felt like this haunting was the start of something and that he was so excited by his connection with me that he'd find me if I didn't run. Dave called me on the Monday to ask how I was and to find out what the problem was, but I insisted that I just needed to go back to London and that nothing had happened. But I had left my portable CD player and case of CDs in the pub, along with my jacket and a few other bits and bobs. So my mum drove me back to the pub to get them. We got there that tea time and as always the bar was busy with after work regulars from the law courts and solicitors' offices nearby. So I go in, I walk straight past everyone who were trying to say hello, straight to the kitchen to grab my things. And the barmaid that day was Erica, who had become a friend. And she followed me. And she said, "You've seen the ghost, haven't you?" And she insisted that I hear her out. So she tells me that there was another barmaid called Avril who left before I started because she'd seen him and was equally scared. He had apparently followed her downstairs to the ladies' toilets, said her name and smiled at her. And apparently Avril looked very much like me at that time. I ended up telling Erica everything and then I left. That night, Dave called me again. He asked me to come back to work and promised that I'd never be left on my own, but I told him I couldn't. I was still shocked by everything that had happened and I just wanted to run away as soon as possible. Once he realised that my mind was made up, he told me what he knew. The Sailmaker arms had, as the name suggested, been a sailmakers in the 1600s that served the ships at the docks on its doorstep. By all accounts, many of the men working there were petty criminals working their sentence or working whilst awaiting transport to jails elsewhere. Our man is rumoured to have been a very young man who was a wind-up merchant, a cheeky chap. The building back then was not split into floors, and the height was used to make sails. The story goes that on one particular occasion he played one trick too many on his peers, and the other lads strung him up to get back at him. But the joke backfired and he was accidentally hanged in the roof of what is now the function room. Maybe why he was saying, "Claire, look up here." He was apparently then thrown into the River Humber, a matter of yards away, but his body resurfaced shortly afterwards and was brought to the Sailmakers for identification. The high street where the pub is situated was at that time an area frequented by prostitutes, and to this day has no less than 5 pubs along it. I did move back to London that Wednesday. As I reflected, I felt a strange threat in the back of my mind that was pushing me to do something, take risks, say yes to opportunities, be bold. And it wasn't until listening to one of your podcasts that I was prompted to think that maybe this young lad, as well as trying to pull a girl, was trying to tell me to live, to embrace life and not settle for easy at my mum's house. I genuinely did feel a compulsion to make good of my youth when I returned to London. So I was 22 when this happened and didn't step a foot back in there until about a decade later. I've lived back in Hull since the early 2000s, but only been back in that pub 4 or 5 times in total, and never alone. Thank you to Claire for sending in her paranormal experience. 2 fascinating paranormal experiences this week. As much as I want to see a ghost, I think I would probably lose my mind if I did, but I still think I want to. All the links to everything you need can be found in this episode's show notes. Thank you as always for listening to Scary, which is an independent podcast. It is quite literally just me. Thank you for your continued support and your amazing reviews that you write. It blows my mind that people listen to the show every week. Thank you for listening, and join me next time for another episode of Scary.
If your team isn't using ClickUp, you're wasting time, and data proves it. 61% of knowledge workers manage work more than doing it, switching apps 1,000 times a day. That's work sprawl and costs millions. ClickUp replaces 20 apps with Convergence, uniting projects, docs, and chats, while AI super agents handle the busy work. Join 4 million teams using ClickUp to finish work 30% faster. Try it free and get 15% off AI upgrades at clickup.com/podcast. That's CLICKUP.com/podcast.
We all prefer things a certain way, like groceries. If you want groceries just how you like them, you gotta try Instacart. They have a new preference picker that lets you pick how ripe or unripe you want your bananas. Shoppers can see your preferences up front, helping guide their choices. Because when it comes to groceries, the details matter. Instacart. Get groceries just how you like.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer? Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed. Plus, free home delivery with any bed and base. Ends Monday. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers, so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/ACAST today.
Pro athletes don't spend their time meal prepping. They eat smart, train hard, and recover fast. Factor makes it easy with dietitian-designed, chef-prepared meals built to fuel your performance. Choose from high-protein, calorie-smart, GLP-1 support, and vegetarian options designed by nutrition experts to support strength and recovery. Train like a pro, eat like a pro. Right now, go to factormeals.com/healthy50off and use code healthy50off for 50% off and free breakfast for a year. That's factormeals.com/healthy50off, code healthy50off.
Hey, this is Paige from Giggly Squad. Peloton is inviting everyone into their Pilates era, and honestly, I love the idea. Peloton Pilates is built on precision, backed by results, and trusted by over 2 million members with expert instructors and classes designed for every level. You can choose 10 to 45-minute sessions with little to no equipment anytime, anywhere. And Peloton isn't just about running or cycling. Their cross-training series makes it easy to mix movement styles without committing to just one thing. Press Pilates, small moves, big impact. Visit onepeloton.com/Pilates.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles Mackenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.